big problem with people with calories. They think that calories in, calories out only applies to weekdays. You know, they'll eat in a calorie deficit. They'll eat 1,500 calories a day, and then on the weekend they'll eat 4,000, and they wonder why they're not losing weight.
Why is it that calories in, calories out is like talking about religion or politics? Why can't people get it? What is going on right now?
Yeah, so I think there's a few reasons why people really struggle with this. The first is you're absolutely right. Like if you ingest food, that food has carbons. Those carbons have got to go somewhere, right? Like they have to, and if a diet, for example, provides some benefit to weight loss, it is through calories in or calories out, right? In terms of either it's somehow increasing your energy expenditure or it's decreasing what you intake. Now, we'll talk about why this is why the science is correct, but it's an inexact science from a tracking standpoint. And this is what confuses people. So first off, the first thing that confuses people, they say, well, I track my calories and I exercised, and my watch said I was burning 2,500 calories a day and I was eating 1,800 and I didn't lose weight. Well, first off, I would say that keep in mind that unless you are weighing every single thing you put in your mouth, you're probably underestimating what you eat. And I'm not saying that you need to weigh every single thing you eat for the rest of your life. I'm just saying that if you think you're eating in a calorie deficit and you're not losing weight and you're not weighing every single thing you put in your mouth, you're very likely underreporting what you eat. And in research studies, I mean, it's shocking. There was a study where the researchers told subjects they were going to track what they ate, and they were going to give them doubly labeled water so they would know what they were eating. Like they would know how much they were eating by using this marker. And at the end, it turns out the people underreported their calorie intake by about 50%. And they argued with the researchers about how much they were eating. I mean, this is like almost like a narcissistic thing, right? So I think calories in, calories out, for some people, it feels really attacking because the overall message, if you're not losing weight, is you're eating too much. But you have to understand that message is you're eating too much for your energy expenditure. We're not saying that it's not saying you're a glutton. It's just saying that, hey, if you're, eating 1,800 calories and not losing weight, then for you, that's not a deficit. Now, you may have gone to an online calculator and plugged in some metrics and it said that should be a deficit and you didn't lose weight. But what's more likely, that you're breaking the laws of thermodynamics, or that online calculator was wrong, or that you're underreporting? And in studies, I mean, again, obese people underreport by 50 to 70%. Obese women tend to be the biggest underreporters. Even lean people underreport by about 20%. And then dietitians still underreport by 10%. And we're talking about the people who are supposed to be like the absolute experts at this, right? So, and when I say underreporting, I want to be really clear. I'm not saying that people are necessarily lying about what they eat. I think some people really feel like they're reporting accurately, but people are horrible estimators of their food intake. And if you've ever been somebody who's actually weighed every single thing you eat, you understand why that is. Because if you ever want to be depressed, go weigh out a serving of ice cream, or go weigh out a serving of cereal, or go weigh out a serving of peanut butter. I had some frosted mini wheats yesterday for breakfast, some quick carbs before I went to the gym, because my daughter loves frosted mini wheats. And I poured it into the bowl and it barely covered the bottom, and it was a serving and a half. It's like nobody actually eats that. People fill up the bowl. Well, if you fill up a bowl full of cereal, you're probably eating 3 or 4 servings of cereal. So again, what would happen is people would probably pour that bowl of cereal and say, okay, that's a serving, when it's not. So that's a big part of it. The second thing is these activity monitors, there was a recent meta-analysis, I think it was back in 2018, where they looked at, okay, how accurate are these things? And they found that at best, they overestimated exercise energy expenditure by 23%. I can't remember exactly which model that was, but one of them overestimated by 95%. So you're talking about, okay, if it says you're burning 1,000 calories during your workout, you're actually burning more like 500 to 800, right? Like it's much lower than you think it is. So again, what's more likely, that your watch is overestimating or you're breaking the laws of thermodynamics?
Exactly. And what you brought up earlier, I was shocked. 50%, 80% overestimating calories in terms of how much you're eating. I always been telling people it's 30%, that people overestimate by 30%. So I'm hearing it's actually way more than that. So people, I don't think they're lying, as you're saying. I think they just don't know how to do it. They don't measure accurately. They're not actually weighing their peanut butter. They're not weighing their cereal. They're just throwing it in a bowl and saying, yeah, it's probably 100 calories. Meanwhile, it's 350, like you're saying. So that is a huge problem. And these stupid machines and Fitbits and trackers, I've done videos on this. I'm like, there's no way you burn off 1,500 calories in an hour on a frigging treadmill when I'm a competitive cyclist and I can't do that. You're 150 pounds and you're burning 50% more calories than me? Not possible. And you also mentioned those stupid online calorie trackers and estimators are saying you're this weight, you need 1,800 calories, and you're eating 1,800 and you're like, well, why am I overweight? And you're thinking, well, calories in, calories out can't work. So these reasons, that's got to be it. People don't want to put blame on themselves. It's so much easier to pass the buck than to say it's on me. But as soon as people can own it themselves, that's when you can bring about change. Can't change people that don't want to change. People just want to blame others. They're just going to keep blaming others and not ever lose the weight.
Yeah, and I think that, people will take it too far with what we're saying. And they'll say, well, I have hypothyroidism. You're saying calories in, calories out works for me. Yes, we are. But what we're saying is your calories out are going to be much lower than what's predicted for somebody. But you can also get medication for that. Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, Greg, but I've noticed that a lot of people who claim they have hormonal problems never actually get their hormones measured, because I will ask them, like, what hormones are you talking about? And they'll say, well, it's got to be this. And I say, wait, you haven't had it measured? So, well, no. I say, well, how do you know? And I think it's one of these things where they don't actually want to get it measured because they're scared that it would be normal and then the responsibility might be back on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And think of this. Let's say it actually is that hormonal problem. Let's say you have an underactive thyroid, horrible, broken metabolism. How much is that really going to matter? A couple hundred calories? Let's say it's even 500. That just means you need to eat 500 calories less. Yep. And just because somebody's eating a lot, I see this all the time, bragging, I'm eating this many, 5,000 calories, 6,000 calories. I'm like, if I eat 3,000 calories a day, I am suffering like no one other. I would feel like garbage because my metabolism burning 4,000. So if I'm in 1,000 calorie deficit, that feels like shit to me. So just because I'm eating 3,000, that doesn't mean anything. You're eating 1,500. Oh, you're so lucky you can eat 3,000. I'm like, you're so lucky you get to eat 1,500 and be at maintenance because I'm in a deficit. I feel like shit. They don't realize that.
Yeah, I actually had an interesting kind of case study where I had a guy who was able to get really lean for a bodybuilding show. I mean, real, like shredded, like had like vascularity in his upper glutes. And he was eating probably like 2,400 calories, but he was only like 170 pounds. So he was pretty small. He had a pretty active job, so that was part of it. But, he still had the same issues of, hey, he was eating enough, but he still felt ravenously hungry. He had very low sex drive. He was very tired in the gym. And so it's not so much about the absolute calorie number so much as it is about the relative deficit for you. And so the only good thing I would submit about having, more food intake is you have a little bit more flexibility with like social life and that sort of thing. Like if you want to go out and have a meal out, again, you're introducing a lot of error. What I always tell people and clients is look at the restaurants that do list their calories, look at what those calories are. I mean, you're routinely seeing salads that are, 1,000, 1,500 calories. So just keep that in mind. You can go out to eat, but you are introducing a lot of error. And again, I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. Actually, this brings me, Greg, to another big problem with people with calories. They think that calories in, calories out only applies to weekdays. You know, they'll eat in a calorie deficit. They'll eat 1,500 calories a day, and then on the weekend they'll eat 4,000, and they wonder why they're not losing weight. They say, "Well, I'm in a calorie deficit." Well, no, you're not. That's like saying, "Well, I have a budget of $1,000 a week to spend, and I only spent $100 every day during the week, but on the weekend they spend $700." And I said, "Well, I can't seem to save money." Well, no kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it all the time. People will report how many calories they eat on a daily basis, and then it's like, I don't know why I'm losing. I had 1,200 calories for 3 days, and then I binge. And I'm like, well, don't tell me you eat 1,200 a day. Give me the average. Like, how many calories are you actually eating? It's so frustrating to me. But I mean, what are we really going to do? People want to think it's not their fault. They want to blame somebody else. They don't want to blame it onto themselves. They don't want to fix themselves. So this is going to happen. It's going to happen forever.
Yeah, and a great example of that is, and I don't mind talking about this because she's talked about it. My wife is recovering from binge eating disorder. She did a prep this past year, did great, had like no binges, that sort of thing, and she was shocked at how much easier it was. But I mean, she would actually like go back and try to track her binges, and you'd be shocked. I mean, she is 150 pounds in the off season, 140 pounds. And in 15 minutes, 4,000 calories, she could put it down easy. And we've got people who are talking about, on a weekend, they might just kind of go like, go out for pancakes and waffles in the morning, and then they're drinking all day, and then they're having a whole pizza at night. Well, you might be talking about like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories, man. It's a huge amount, but they might think, oh, I probably overate by like 500 calories or something like that. It's like, no, dude, you were way over. And I think the one other thing that I want to touch on, I just had a thought that confuses people, is metabolic adaptation. So people look at calories in, calories out, and they think that they're independent variables. That your calories out is this static number that doesn't move. Anyone out there who's ever tried to do a super lean bulk knows that this is not true. Because what do you do? Like everybody's ever done it. It's like, I'm just going to have 100 calorie surplus and I'm just going to add lean mass. And what happens? Well, you don't gain anything, you gain nothing, and then boom, you gain 2 pounds in a week, right? And what's happening is if you increase your food intake, your body actually increases its metabolic rate, and you actually increase your spontaneous activity, like your spontaneous physical activity. In fact, there was a study by Liebel back in 1995 where they overfed a group of people by 1,000 calories a day. And they determined this through a metabolic chamber, so it was very accurate. Almost everybody gained weight. Some people gained a lot of weight. One person didn't gain weight. And they found that this person just literally increased their spontaneous physical activity. And we have to be clear, because you know this. People will confuse when you say physical activity, they'll just think exercise. That's not all physical activity. In fact, what I'm doing now, like talking with my hands and moving around, and like I'm not consciously thinking about doing that, but that is a big portion of your total daily energy expenditure. And what they find, a lot of people who are really obese resistant, they call it, have really high amounts of spontaneous physical activity.
Yeah, and as I'm talking to you right now, my leg is shaking up and down. So they don't see it, but I'm burning calories that they're not aware of. And so I've always felt that metabolism is truly kind of overrated in terms of like just saying, well, my metabolism is this or that. If I raise my metabolism, if I speed up my metabolism, if only had that metabolism, or even saying, well, if I had more muscle, and we preach it all the time, add more muscle, your metabolism will go up, great, all this stuff. But in the end, if your metabolism goes up, you need more calories, and your body's going to be hungrier to compensate for that. And so it doesn't really matter all that much, because when I was a kid, I say 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I had 50 pounds less muscle, I could eat 2,000 calories. Now that I'm bigger, I eat 3,000. If I'm eating 2,000 now, which would have been comfortable then, I'm starving now. So even though my metabolism is faster, it's not really helping me. Aside from what you said, it makes it easier in social situations where you're at restaurants. I can eat more freely. It's not as big a deal for me. And for me, I'm one of those lucky ones, as you said in that study. If you eat more, some people's metabolisms, they just go up. They're neat. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis is going up. If I add in 1,000 calories, guaranteed, I'm moving around more. I'm burning off a lot of those calories. So I might think I'm in 1,000 calorie surplus, but really it's only 500. Same on a diet. I might cut 500 calories out of my diet, then I sit like this. And so I'm not losing weight. And I'm like, well, the diet didn't work, but it's like, no, your movement stopped. Your calories out went down, and people don't get that. And obviously you get that, but so many people just think it's such an easy thing with the numbers and they're tracking. And I'm like, you can't track within 50 calories anyway. Like you just said earlier, the dietitians were even off by 10%. Yeah. What luck do we have if nutrition professionals can't track accurately? How do we expect the average person to do so?
So I think that that's one of the big criticisms of like tracking calories sort of things. Well, you can't track it exactly. You can't know what you're getting exactly. True. That's very true. However, if you've got one side of the equation and you've got one other metric from the other side of the equation, you can figure it out. What I mean is, if you're tracking consistently and you track the same way every time and you are weighing accurately, whatever, yes, you could be off by 10, 20%, but it's going to be a consistent 10, 20%. So let's say you think you're eating 1,800 calories and you're actually eating 2,000 and you're not losing weight as quickly as you want to. Well, if you're tracking your body weight and you can see, hey, I'm actually losing it like, half the rate I'd like to, well, then regardless of what you think you're eating, you would know that you need to lower your calorie intake relative to your weight loss and your targeted rate of loss. And here's another big one. People weigh in sporadically and think that calories in, calories out doesn't work, right? Greg, I'm sure you've had the experience of tracking your body weight every day, like Absolutely. Weighing in every day. How much can your body weight fluctuate from day to day? In the morning, same time, all other things equal?
I've seen 12 pounds, literally. And I would say typically 3 to 5 pounds, like a typical week, that much. So use this to weigh yourself once a day. That's why I always preach median weight, not even the average, the median weight. I want to get rid of those outliers. So that's what I preach to everyone.
Yeah, we do averages with my coaches. We do averages, but obviously, like, the average or the median is going to be much less prone to those variations compared to, again, you can have it where I have people say, well, I lost 12 pounds on this diet this week. It's like, yeah, your average probably went down 4. You know what I mean? Like, and by the same token, if you weigh in on the wrong day, your average could have gone down by 1 or 2 pounds. But if you weighed in on a day where you had a high fluctuation, you might have thought you were up a pound. And so that leads people to go, oh, see, this diet isn't working. Well, no, your average was dropping. And that's why it's so important to have these metrics, because again, if you're spontaneous, and a lot of people don't realize that you weigh more at night. I don't know how this isn't common knowledge, but some people are like, I'll get people like, Lane, I've been on a diet and I weighed in and I was 5 pounds heavier. I said, well, when did you weigh yourself? Well, I weighed myself, about 5 p.m. And like, yeah, you drank water and you had food. Those things have mass, and that mass has to go somewhere. Just take a gallon of water and stand on a scale and see how much heavier the scale is. Like it's pretty basic stuff. So that's why I tell people, first thing in the morning, after you've gone to the bathroom, weigh yourself and just look at that every week.